Ahoy! Welcome aboard a brand new episode of Salvaged Treasures. Today's be the Banpresto Shin Godzilla radioactive version. As usual, the history and opinions of the figure will be held until after the showcase. This really isn't a figure so much as a vinyl statue. The entire thing's not a single cast. There are clear seam lines connecting the top of the head to the bottom of the jaw and the rest of its body. There are also some seams where the spines are attached and in certain parts of the tail. What? You thought they made that whole tail in one go? Nah. But the seams are nicely hidden within the ridges, so it's not a big deal. And as for the dorsal spines, there's a pretty damn good reason as to why they were separate. They were casted in a translucent material so that light could shine through them. Despite all this, you may be wondering, why would they make the top of the head a separate piece, ruining the perfect mold of its face? Well, there's a pretty good reason for that too. Without doing so, they wouldn't have been able to so beautifully mold the inside of his mouth. That's right. Even though it's near impossible to see from almost any angle, Yuji Sakai did his damn well best to make sure this figure kicked ass from every position. As for the details, they're pretty much the same as the first releases to my knowledge. To really help with the iridescent effect of the spines, not only were they cast in translucent material, but they were also applied with a nice glossy finish. The paint throughout the body and on its spines is for the most part pretty smooth sailing and has no glaring mistakes. The only paint issues are found where the spines are connected to the body and the creases of the gills, as the purple paint has some clear abrupt edges. Now let's sail into the history of this figure. This incarnation of Godzilla showed up in the newest film in the series, Shin Godzilla, or Godzilla Resurgence. I made sure to say that to horribly take the video. If you haven't seen the film and are not aware of the backstory to this version of Godzilla, I ought to be completely understanding as this film has had a fairly limited run in the US. Abandon ship all ye who dislike spoilers. This movie's essentially about the creation of the ultimate superior being. Kind of like Cars, but less muscular and less flowing. As usual, man is responsible for the dumping of radioactive trash in the Earth's finest all-natural disposal unit, the ocean. Well, that stuff ends up mutating some simple organism, which is never really further elaborated on, and gains the almost godlike ability to physically adapt to its environment almost instantaneously. So to keep it short, Godzilla starts out like some Hedorah tadpole thing, realizes it's changing the environment when climbing upon land, and evolves itself to have legs and adapts its gills to work as lungs. Within a very short amount of time, Godzilla is walking upright, has developed arms, and teaches itself to not only create combustion from its mouth, resulting in a fiery explosion, but refining it to the point that it becomes a pinpoint laser and cuts through any obstacle that is not within his immediate reach. Because of Japan's messy rules and guidelines regarding the use of military-type actions after the war, much of the government is in turmoil fighting amongst themselves trying to decide whether they should break the laws concerning their use of these types of weapons to defend themselves from Godzilla, or to wait and hope that some other country comes in with aid before they're all destroyed. The US. Ultimately, the scientists come up with some solution that in the end tricks Godzilla's biological functions with some form of coagulant to freeze him in place. So, they couldn't actually kill him, but they at least temporarily stopped him. And naturally, there's a twist. The camera pans across the tip of his tail, and you see these creepy-ass humanoid skeletons with dorsal spines frozen, which were apparently trying to escape and reap havoc as Godzilla's next form. In other words, it's a fantastic film, and arguably one of the best in the Godzilla series, right next to Godzilla vs. Destroyer, the original, and that one Charles Barkley comic. This figure is actually more like a second wave to the original Banpresto Shin Godzilla figure, right alongside the frozen version. It has what appears to be no major differences besides the aesthetic ones and the transparent parts like I mentioned before. The figure isn't really a retail product, but a prize that's winnable in some lottery game event in Japan. Naturally, I couldn't win it that way because I'm too poor to fly to Japan just to play a lottery. The amazing model was done by renowned Godzilla sculptor Yuji Sakai, and in my personal opinion stands to be one of the best looking and most accurate depictions of Shin Godzilla in figure form. In other words, stay away from the monster arts. And I don't care how good people say the new Awakened version is. I've seen it. The teeth are painted even worse than my NECA GMK. Not to mention the other paint application problems. The accessories are nice, but it's just not worth it. If you're going to drop that kind of money on Shin, just buy the Banpresto. Now, time to sail on to the seaworthiness of this figure. Not exactly what I had in mind. As cool as it is, this figure gets 2 thumbs down for seaworthiness. Look at him, he'd sink the vessel! Basically a dead weight. Only reason I'd give it a thumbs up is because technically, this iteration of Godzilla was created from an aquatic organism to begin with. And to be perfectly honest, since the whole point is that he can adapt to any environment, I suppose eventually he would just shrink his ass down, so then he could become a proper pirate.